Okay, so if that's true, let's walk through the permutations as you see them about the options on the table to David and Larry Ellison about what they could or could not do from a structural perspective to persuade the AGs to settle this case and what that would cost.
So I think there's two major things they can do. We put a piece out this morning on this, and there's two major options they have, or two major things they probably have to do. One, they probably have to sell one of the studio lots, so either Warner Brothers or the Paramount lot. They're going to have to sell a significant amount of the major franchises. So think Harry Potter, DC Comics, like Dune. They're going to have to basically give up on some of the key franchises they were about to buy. And they're probably going to have to give up a substantial amount of the catalog titles sitting in one of the two studios. Because what you basically have to do is you have to sort of pair off enough stuff so that you could create another major studio. If an A24, like whoever is out there, could buy these assets and then become a major, maybe a private equity firm, but somebody's going to need to be able to create another major studio. Paramount would still get the ability to combine HBO Max, and Paramount Plus would still get a lot more catalog content in total and have a far bigger company. But they would obviously lose a lot of the synergies and cost savings they plan to get. And on the cable network side, they probably have to get rid of the Turner networks like TBS, TNT, CNN. Like those are big cost savings and news savings they expected to get and leverage they expected to get to quote unquote bend the curve on cable networks. But I don't think they're going to be able to buy them all. Again, this doesn't matter what the legal implications are.
But let's just take a step back. I don't see them selling CNN or the Turner networks the way you've described because, frankly, they need the cash flow. If you look at the lending documents that are related to this transaction, all of the banks that are on the hook are relying on that cash flow. Those assumptions
are very clear. There's a way to fix that. Larry Ellison could inject a lot more cash into this transaction because you have two choices, Andrew. $7 billion and you get literally nothing, or do the two transactions I just mentioned, which are very painful. And remember, you're selling cable networks at 3 to 4 times EBITDA, maybe 4 to 5, and you're buying them from Warner Brothers at, in the teens. So it's a very painful transaction. But again, $7 billion, you get nothing, or you cure the leverage issue that you're talking about with the banks, and you actually get a meaningful portion of the combined company. It's a lesser of two evils. And I know it sounds terrible, but I think the team at Paramount at some point over the next few months, to your point, is going to have to swallow this very, very tough pill.
It sounds to me, based on the case that's been brought, that your first option is more attractive or would be the solve for what at least they're seeking. They're not making an argument really about the cable operation.
They've made two major if you look at the complaint, there's two major parts of it. It doesn't really touch streaming. They're going to have too much power in the movie studio world, so in the theatrical output of major releases and wide release films. So selling substantial franchise IP would help solve that. And they've said they will have too much leverage in linear cable networks to have power over MVPDs like Comcast, Charter, DirecTV. And so, look, I think there'd be lots of buyers. I mean, your parent company had a really solid quarter today. They're showing what happens when you run a cable company or linear TV company differently. Would Mark Lazarus and team want to buy TBS, TNT, and CNN? Maybe. I mean, I think there are buyers for both sets of assets that you could sell.
I'm not sure about that last sentence, by the way. I mean, I think that Versant's been pretty clear that. What'd you say?
It all depends on the price, right?
Always depends on the price. But I think that, at least on the Versant side, the strategy has been to diversify away from linear, actually, not to double down on it.
They're doing a great job of that. But I'm just saying, like, look at Hearst. Hearst bought Disney's A&E assets yesterday, the other 50%. They paid 3 times or 3.5 times EBITDA for those assets. Like, there are buyers for linear TV assets out there. Starz has been on the hunt for assets. Like, I do believe that there would be buyers if Paramount put some of these assets up for sale, both on film and TV. I don't think it would be hard to do it. It would be hard financially for them, as you point out correctly, Andrew, the what they would have to do to cure the leverage issues would be very substantial.
Versant might like stars. Hey, Rich, will you at least acknowledge that the point that fighting yesterday's battle with the real competition isn't with legacy Hollywood? I mean, it's like when you didn't want Kroger to merge with some other supermarket, and you got Amazon, you got Walmart.
Joe,
it was like Sirius XM. It was like Sirius XM. Don't let them together when you got Spotify and Apple Music and all that. That's yesterday's battle. The consolidation in one, the concentration in one place isn't real. Those guys, they know that.
Joe, I agree with you. I think we've been yelling this from rooftops for months, going back to when Netflix was trying to buy Warner Brothers. But you had on your air, David Ellison was interviewed by David Faber on CNBC several months ago and literally said that these are very distinct markets, that television and streaming and YouTube doesn't compete with streaming. Like, they were very clear on CNBC that these are very distinct and narrow markets when they were trying to defeat Netflix's bid for Warner Brothers. And so it's hard to now reverse and tell the court, well, wait, the market is actually everything, which, again, I agree with you. I agreed with the original premise that these are one big market for entertainment. But Paramount, in many ways has really dug themselves a hole in how they defined the market during the Netflix process. And I understand why they did it, but it sort of has come back to bite them with the states.